What was I thinking? Ugh.
Rarity tossed the dress on the floor, her body sagging as her battle against exhaustion was slowly lost.
Maybe I could cut the hemline out. I'd hate to have to use a new piece of fabric.
She tossed the dress onto her work table, reached for the scissors, and gasped when she saw outside. It was daylight.
I worked all night?
She said, mixing surprise with not a little bit of awe. All at once, she became aware of her tired body and exhausted mind, now finding the opening they needed to betray her creative will.
This isn't due for several more days. I can't possibly perfect this as tired as I am. I do need the rest.
Suddenly, a knock came from the door, and Rarity jerked up in surprise.
Just a moment.
She staggered toward the door and opened it, finding Derpy standing there with a box and an envelope.
Good morning, Miss Hooves.
It's afternoon.
That's nice. I'm glad they're letting you deliver mail again.
Rarity said absently, taking the package Derpy held out for her.
Thanks. That was special, just for you.
Rarity shut the door behind her as she dumped the box on her work table. She took a step toward her bedroom, but turned to study the box. With a sigh, she grabbed her scissors and, as neatly as her tired mind allowed, cut through the packaging tape and opened the box. Inside was a folded letter, a circular blue pill, and a unicorn knife. A pointed, single-sided blade with no handle or tang.
Most curious.
She unfolded the letter, feeling its stiffness and heft, noticing the insignia of the Royal Museum organization on the letterhead. She proceeded to read it.
To Lady Rarity, your sister Sweetie Belle recently visited the Magical Artifacts Museum in Canterlot while on a field trip with her class, led by Cheerilee of Ponyville. Due to a mishap involving the Goliathkin wallet exhibit, Sweetie Belle is now cursed with a doppelganger? This malign doppelganger is draining Sweetie Belle's life force to feed its own. Sweetie Belle is in intensive care at the Titania Hospital here in Canterlot, which specializes in the treatment of magical maladies. Time is short. The doppelganger returned to Ponyville with Sweetie Belle's class before we realized what had happened. The doppelganger may already be in your town. As she considers herself Sweetie Belle in every aspect, I, the curator of the Magical Artifacts Museum, have decided that you are in the best position to dispose of the magical detritus. She will not suspect any ill intentions of you, considering you her actual sister. Please note, do not mention the field trip or any past events involving Sweetie Belle. The doppelganger may not remember, and could become quite violent at any hint that she is a false being. Included in this package are one sleeping pill and one unicorn knife. We have determined the easiest method of terminating the doppelganger is to have her take the sleeping pill and slitting her throat while she is asleep. Once termination is achieved, please bring this letter to your local sheriff's office, and they will dispose of the body. We thank you for your assistance in this manner. Sincerely, Ruby Spear, Ph.D., Curator of the Magical Artifacts Museum, Canterlot.
Rarity's adrenal glands, after powering her creative drive for a night and the beginning day, fired into full production. There would be no sleep, as her heart was now racing over what she had just read.
This must be some kind of joke! Why not my parents? I don't...
Rarity dropped the letter, heavy enough to fall to the ground straight, with no fluttering. Dizzy, she moved her head around the room, her gaze passing over her dress, the curtained windows, the door, only to see nothing. She magically grasped the letter again and studied the symbol intently. The sun disk, a sign of the Equestrian Museum system. She moved down to the signature of the curator, her mind overstuffed with bafflement, when her front door suddenly opened.
Hi, Rarity! Why are you screaming?
Sweetie Belle said as she entered. She winced and cringed away from Rarity.
I'm not screaming.
Rarity said, forcing a smile so wide that the edges of her mouth threatened to split her face.
You started when I came. Ooh! What's this?
Sweetie Belle dashed to the black chiffon dress Rarity was working on and oohed and awed over it, trying to view it from every angle.
Oh, just some work for a client. So, how was your field trip? Wait, don't answer that. It doesn't matter.
Whatever, Rarity.
That dark scowl. There's definitely something off. Her movements are so mechanical, not sprightly like they were supposed to be. There's no light in her eyes. I have to save my sister. Sweetie, would you like to share some tea with me?
Sure. Thanks, Rarity.
Rarity quickly grabbed the letter and stuck it back into the box, levitating it with her to the kitchen.
What's this?
Sweetie Belle asked, as she trotted alongside the box and poked it with an inquisitive hoof.
Nothing at all.
It looks like something.
Just some things to put up. You wait right here while I brew the tea.
Rarity quickly trotted into the kitchen, using her magic to pour water into the kettle, while grabbing 2 porcelain cups and their saucers, positioning herself so she could face the entryway in case Sweetie Belle, or Sweetie Dupe in Rarity's thoughts, came in. Rarity lowered her Brown Betty teapot onto the counter and lifted the lid off a tin box of decaffeinated tea, a flush of pride entering Rarity's face at her planning, and scooped the leaves into the strainer. She then, with the carefulness of a nurse in the maternity ward, levitated the box to the desk and pulled out the sleeping pill. The kettle whistled, and Rarity turned to the stove to take it off its burner. She turned around and yelped when she saw Sweetie Belle rifling through the box.
Is that a knife?
Sweetie, stay away from that! You could hurt yourself!
Rarity said, snatching the package away from her.
I'm bored, Rarity. What are we going to do today?
Well, after the tea, we could go to the theater and to watch a play?
Sweetie Belle jumped and squeaked in excitement.
Yes! I want to watch Station Wars again!
Rarity's left eye twitched.
Station Wars? Surely you... Yes, Station Wars it is. Now, please go back to the shop in case any customers come in. I'll buy you extra butter on your popcorn.
Okay!
Sweetie said, tearing back into the main showroom with squeaky excitement in her voice. Rarity slumped. She just wanted to get this over with. There was a picture of the immediate future, of what she was about to do. But she put it out of her head. She did not want to fall into fear or weakness. Instead, she imagined poor Sweetie Belle in that Canterlot hospital, having her life force sucked by that discordant fetch in the other room.
Oh, dreadful!
After the tea had finished brewing, Rarity poured the bitter and beautiful liquid into the teacups, their lips bordered with delicately stenciled red roses and white lilies, her favorite set. With a deep breath, she dropped the sleeping pill into the cup on her right. She watched it bubble up and waited.
Isn't that supposed to dissolve?
What?
Nothing! I'll simply speed things along.
She opened a drawer and dug around for her pestle.
There, this should do.
She pressed the pestle into the teacup and dug against the pill sitting at the bottom.
This is harder than it should be.
Rarity thought with a huff. The pill was pushed against the side of the cup, and Rarity smiled as she felt the pill crumble. She ground it against it one more time for luck, and the cup suddenly tipped over, allowing the steamy liquid to escape.
No!
She quickly grabbed the cup and righted it, feeling her heart sink as she watched the tea run off the table and drip to the floor. She grabbed a towel and cleaned up the mess, and topped Sweetie Belle's cup off with more tea. She stirred carefully, making sure each grain was fully dissolved before carrying both cups and saucers to the showroom.
And that's how we got the trebuchet to fire!
That's lovely, sweetie.
Rarity said, fighting to hold open her eyelids. Rarity was worried that she had the wrong cup, but reassured herself of serving Sweetie Belle the drugged cup.
I really should have made some caffeinated tea for me.
At the least, the doppelganger, not recognizing the cups that Rarity loved so much, and that Sweetie Belle so desperately wanted to use, proved again that this was a mere dupe.
Rarity, you're pretty fidgety today.
Am I? Just stressed from working on this project, that's all. Why won't she fall asleep? Well, what you need is to watch Station Wars again. That will make you feel really good. Are you feeling tired, sweetie?
A little bit.
Well, we can catch the night showing. How about you take a quick nap while I clean up around here? I'll wake you up when it's time to go, and I'll even let you get extra butter on your popcorn.
Rarity said, reeling back from that hateful frown Sweetie Dupe was giving her.
You already said that.
Did I? It must have slipped my mind.
That's okay.
Sweetie, where are you going?
Guest bedroom.
Sweetie mumbled as she pulled herself up to the second floor.
Those satin sheets are going to be ruined if doppelgangers bleed.
When Sweetie Belle was out of sight, Rarity quickly ran down to the utility room and dug an old scratchy cotton sheet, already stained with the ghosts of cleanings past, and slowly made her way up the stairs to the guest room, each step savaging her mind with anxiety. Sweetie Dupe did not even bother to get under the sheets, simply lying across the bedspread while her head lay against the pillow. Rarity snuck in as close as she dared to listen to Sweetie's quiet breathing.
Good. It is asleep.
She used her magic to levitate Sweetie's body so she could lie the sheet under her, making sure to cover every inch of the bedspread. She placed Sweetie Dupe back into her position and took a deep breath as she ran back to the kitchen to fetch the unicorn knife. It felt slimy in her magical grasp, and she dropped it onto the floor, it clattering like distant bells as its shiny surface reflected the sunlight throughout the kitchen, like a search beam hunting for an escaped criminal. Rarity closed her eyes and took a deep breath, calming her nerves while listening to any movement or sound from upstairs.
Don't think about this. Just do it. I must save my sister.
She grasped the knife again, fighting against the clammy feel of it, like a stranger's grasp, and snuck upstairs. The dupe was snoring away. Rarity swallowed, placing the knife on the bed table so she could use her magic to roll the dupe onto her back. Dual casting was a difficult spell, and Rarity wanted to focus. Rarity levitated the knife again, eyeing the dupe's sweet white neck, so clean and pure, and with the thought of her poor sister fading away in a hospital.
Rarity?
Sweetie Belle awoke. Rarity sliced at the dupe's neck. Sweetie Belle jerked out of the way of the blade, and instead of her jugular being split, the knife slashed into the right side of her neck, nicking the carotid artery. Sweetie Belle screamed and jumped out of the bed, running to the stairs with blood gushing from her wound.
Sweetie, come back here! You're getting blood all over the floor!
Rarity shouted, running after her. She grimaced as she saw the dupe run down the stairs.
Rarity, stop! Please, I'm sorry! Don't!
Sweetie said, pushing her plea through cries of shock. Sweetie tripped at the bottom of the stairs and rolled into the sewing machine table, letting out a whimper of fear. Rarity was on top of her, levitating the knife, using her hooves to roll the dupe onto her back.
Rarity! Rarity! I love you! I'm sorry, please!
Sweetie Belle screamed, tears running down her face, finally feeling the pain, fear, and shock. But all were weaker than the hurt and sadness in her heart.
That's nice.
Rarity said, and then she plunged the knife into Sweetie Belle's throat, and with a quick slash, severed both carotid arteries and her trachea. Sweetie Belle's eyes widened as tears gushed down her face, whistling coming from her split trachea, as the initial spurt of blood from her arteries died down into dual rivers flowing from her neck. Her body twitched, and slowly, the terror in her face dissipated into a calm uncaring. Her body relaxed, and one last whisper rose from her throat before dying into silence.
Well,
Rarity said, as she dropped the knife, rose from the corpse, trotted daintily into the bathroom, and threw up. After swishing some mouthwash, she collected the all-important letter from the box in the kitchen, smiling to herself.
I saved
She passed through the showroom as she headed to the door, sparing a glance at the dupe's corpse, and gasped. She dropped the letter and rushed to the sewing table and lifted the pink chiffon into the air. Blood was splattered across it. With a growl, Rarity tossed the dress onto the table and shouted at the corpse.
You ruined my dress!
She grabbed at the knife and with a hard sneer, slashed at the dupe's face, cutting open soft white fur to red blood and split meat.
How dare you! How dare you!
Her anger died down, and she dropped the stained knife. the fresh blood splattering against the wisteria-colored carpet. Levitating the all-important letter, she exited Carousel Boutique and made her way to the sheriff's office. The outside was dizzying, wide open, and airy, almost overpowering after the stultifying interior of her shop. Her knees were weak, and she had to constantly blink against the bright light of the late afternoon sun, feeling tears dot the corner of her eyes.
I am so utterly exhausted.
Rarity!
Rarity turned and smiled as she saw Cheerilee.
Cheerilee, good to see you.
What happened to you? You're covered in blood. Do I need to call the doctor?
It's not my blood. Don't worry, Sweetie will be out of the hospital in no time.
Cheerilee's eyes narrowed.
What are you talking about?
Why, the field trip, darling. The one your class took to Canterlot to see the Magical Artifacts Museum.
Cheerilee took one step back and swallowed heavily.
My class hasn't gone on any field trip.
Inside Rarity, deep in her soul, a rusted door creaked open, and a scream came out.
Nonsense! Pardon me, but I must be on my way to the sheriff's office. Good evening, Miss Cheerilee.
Rarity said, not even aware that she was fighting against the terror in her soul. As Rarity trotted toward the center of Ponyville, Cheerilee turned and dashed toward Carousel Boutique.
Please, this is all a misunderstanding. That letter should clear everything up.
Rarity said, as she sat on the hard wooden stool across from Ponyville Sheriff Rockwell, called Rocky since his youth. Rocky tossed the letter on the cluttered table. It laid up against the black coffee mug, and Rarity eyed the letter with great concern.
This is very hard to believe. I hope you understand that.
Well, take it up with Ruby Spear. I'm sure she'll explain everything.
What makes you think that Ruby is a she?
With a name like Ruby, why not? Please, Sheriff, I want to see my sister again.
The door to his office opened, and two burly Earth Pony deputies entered. Rocky nodded his head, and the two grabbed Rarity under her forearms. She jerked her head in terror.
What's going on?
Miss Rarity, you are being charged with the murder of Sweetie Belle. That's what's going on.
But that letter!
Rocky smacked the letter, his desk retorting with a bang.
There is no Ruby Spears, nor a Magical Artifacts Museum, nor a Royal Museum system. This letter is a fake!
Rarity's entire body shivered as the scream traveled up her spine.
But I don't...
Did you seriously expect us to fall for this idiotic forgery? What were you thinking?
No.
Rarity said, shaking her head as the two deputies dragged her outside the office, herding her toward the jail. In the main office area, Cheerilee turned her tear-stained face from her interviewer to face Rarity.
What?
Rarity said, still shaking her head as her mouth worked words that would never arrive.
You killed your sister! Why did you do it?
But the field trip...
There was no field trip!
Cheerilee shouted, causing the officer to put their hooves around Cheerilee. afraid of a fight breaking out.
No.
The door to the sheriff's station burst open, and Rarity's parents ran in. Rarity looked up, saw the fear, the broken hearts, the anger, and finally, she screamed. Earlier that day, Derpy Hooves idled around the post office, looking mournfully into its shiny white interior, full of efficiency and organization. She wished she could be part of that again, getting letters all neatly stacked, with address and names, and best of all, watching the pony's face light up when they got that letter or package they had so long been waiting for. It was a good feeling, and it was why Derpy worked as a postmare. Sadly, she was on leave due to a catastrophic mix-up involving carbonated beverages and sugary snacks.
Well, wasn't my fault those crates were stacked so poorly.
Hey, Derpy! I have some mail for you to deliver!
A cheery voice from behind her said. Derpy turned and waved.
I'm sorry, I can't deliver any mail right now. I'm on leave because of some other pony's mistake.
Aw, I'm sorry to hear that. But guess what? You can deliver just these for me. It'll be a secret.
You mean I can be a postman today?
That's right.
Derpy took the box and envelope and carefully read the names and addresses.
Oh, this is interesting. This is a prank, isn't it?
That's right. But it has to be our secret, okay?
I bet it'll be a doozy, huh?
With a grin big enough to show all her teeth, and with eyes as wide as fried eggs, Pinkie Pie spoke.
A doozy? This prank will be a killer.